Good post-Sabbath penumbra, Summa shoppers. The screen's not coming through, and I don't know why, so I'm going to try this little trick. Let's see how this works. What do you know? Good evening, everyone. Happy post-Sabbath penumbra. I'm trying to be a little quiet because I'm over at the Joe Casa, and Joe is busy taking care of some business with worlds other than ours, let's say. And so, because I am soon to go join, I will make this a very quick introduction and dive straight into the Summa. We will be tomorrow back in the pottery shop, I think, and doing our early morning. Sorry, it was a little bit late today also. Considering how this Sabbath evening too things should work as regards to when we start this whole thing, we'll have to contemplate that some more. But I had a nice, beautiful steak dinner and enjoyed my afterwards pipe, and then got over here as soon as possible. Had to drive across town. But I can tell the energy's low because I'm trying to be quiet with the family, and also I can tell I'm being pulled out to the fun that's happening downstairs. So you know what we're going to do? This is the beauty of the daily. It's not about the Summa. It's about the daily, as our brother Yaakov would say concerning Dafyomi. It's about the being here and showing up and having your head in the game and concentrating on the things that are above and not the things of this earth. I have a little reading about concerning that from Brother Lawrence. I'll probably do that one tomorrow. I've had it set up to do for a few days, but haven't got to it. But I'm trying to also look at my sweet, sweet chops in the screen to make sure my hair is not just totally wild. So I think that we should just hit in, get this day done, even though there's some really interesting things in the page today. It would be a wonderful page to have for a full class. But then according to God's providence, perhaps this isn't a good one because the depth that it enters into is so high. Let's say that. The depth is so high that it's a lot to take in. So maybe it's good to just do an even more flyover on whether God knows things other than himself. That's it. And then we're finishing up Article 4, Article 4 of Question 14, whether the act of God's intellect is his substance. And we're finishing that up with the I answer that, which is the real meat of the article, the rational argument. We've already had our argument from authority with Augustine saying in God to be is the same as to be wise. And now he's going to give us his rational argument. So I say we just dive right into it, folks. I kind of like the split screen here with the logo. Don't forget what the logo means, especially you who might first just be joining us for the first time. This is the Summa logo, catechesis and camaraderie. And then up in the top left, you have the Summa open. And then the next one over to the right that's actually an image of hay, but it's supposed to be an image of straw because Thomas said that this Summa was just straw. Everything he had written is just straw. So you go from the open Summa, the erudite learning, the cleverness, the brilliance of all of our words, and then the realization that all of this study and all of these words are just straw. And then that should move you down to the lower next corner, which is the Rosary, meditating on the life of Christ, which today is Palm Sunday. We're entering into Holy Week and a time of very somber and solemn meditation on all that the Lord had to go through to achieve the salvation, and as Tom Holland would say, to bring us out of the ancient world and a way of looking at life that's only based on will to power, and a way of looking at the world that is power through mercy and love. So that is meditating on those things in the Rosary, and enough meditation on that should lead you to the fourth square, which is the meek and humble dove hiding under the staircase. The staircase is all of our trying to climb and our systematic theologies and all of our brilliant mind putting things together in a way that makes perfect sense, stacked together. Whereas, as a book I read once, our father Abraham says, Roman thinking or Western thinking or Gentile thinking, whatever, is stair-step logic, whereas Jewish thinking is block logic, blocks of things that are known to be true. And it's not necessary to know exactly how they line up because God is seeing from his perspective, which is very brilliant. When I first read that, I thought, well, that's just trying to make excuses for the things you don't know. And I thought that when I was like 19. Now, of course, I've had a little bit more learning and understanding and see at least two points to that question. Is one, not knowing is the thing you want because that's what compels science forward. If we knew everything, science would halt and we would be in the divine light. So, as I say all the time, and as Joseph Campbell said, in the cave that you fear to go into is where the treasure lies. It's that darkness and that not knowing that leads you forth into greater discovery and interest and fun. So that's the block logic. There's things that we don't know how they line up. They don't line up like a staircase. And that's the compelling story that's pulling you into the fullness, the mystery around each corner that keeps you turning the pages. And then the second thing is seeing it, desiring and thinking it's intelligent to want the staircase where everything fits together and makes sense, is showing our limited understanding of being. Because everything does make sense if you just see it from one level. But when you start changing, a classic example would be moving from Newtonian physics into quantum physics. Everything does line up in Newtonian physics almost. A couple little things that the mathematicians and physicists always had problems with. And then lo and behold, the quantum realm is what made that start to be understood of why things aren't working out perfectly. But you have a whole new dark cave full of mystery and confusion. But you thought you knew what was good. Newtonian physics, staircase, everything fits together perfect. And then boom, quantum physics comes and just destroys the staircase. And now you have more block logic, like the Jewish way of thinking. So it turns out, lo and behold, the Jews were right all along. And our systematic theologies are doomed to failure. And you have to wait and see the gradual revelation of God, which comes through things that we know are true, which fit together as blocks, not necessarily staircases. And we don't know just how they fit. So that's the fourth square there. And in humility, aware and admitting of our not knowing, the little dove sits humbly under the staircase, waiting for her beloved. And that's where the fire of the Holy Spirit is enkindled, and that's the little flame over the dove's head. So it's good that we have this little image here to just meditate on as we go through page 151, question 14, ending article 4. Let's just pick it up at the previous page because it's only 2 sentences and roll into the I answered that. Here we go. I answered that it must be said that the act of God's intellect is his substance. For if his act of understanding were other than his substance, then something else, as the philosopher says, would be the act and perfection of the divine substance, to which the divine substance would be related. It's the thing we said about the monad. As soon as you think about the monad, there's 2 things. Something, the monad, and something thinking about it, and that's impossible because then it's not a monad. As potentiality is to act, which is altogether impossible, because the act of understanding is the perfection of and act of the one understanding. Let us now consider how this is. As was laid down above in Article 2, to understand is not an act passing to anything extrinsic, for it remains in the operator. Operator is just you, the person. It remains in, it doesn't have to be a person, it could be an angel, it could be, but we're just saying for simplicity's sake, in the operator, in the person thinking. For it remains in the operator as his own act and perfection. As existence is the perfection of the one existing, just as existence follows on the form, so existence follows on the form. We are a manifestation of our form. The form is humanness, the form is horsiness, the form is treeness. Existence follows on the form. So in like manner, to understand follows on the intelligible species. That's what we said the other day. As soon as you see something, you know, the guy's over on the other side of the room, that light hits your eyes and it imprints upon you. It follows upon the intelligible species. Intelligible is that which you see or understand. It's understood, it's intelligible. So what is intelligible follows upon the species. It's acted upon by something outside itself. The thing that you're seeing. The computer's trying to go out again. All right. So now in God, there is no form which is something other than his existence, as shown above. Hence, as his essence itself is also his intelligible species, it necessarily follows that his act of understanding must be his essence and his existence. He's going to go into this further later on, especially in the next article. It gets really wild. Okay, but he is seeing himself. He is knowing within himself of his perfect essence. Thus it follows that from the foregoing, that in God, intellect and the object understood and the intelligible species and his act of understanding are entirely one and the same. Hence, when God is said to be understanding, no kind of multiplicity is attached to his substance. When we understand from the multiplicity of things that are out in front of us. But God is no thing. God is nothing. He is. He is the act of existence itself. We come to understand and grow through the assimilation of things. But God is no particular thing. He is being itself. And he's going to go into this further, and we're really interested to see what he does when he starts going into the Trinity further on and how this can be. How can he be one and three? But as for now, we'll just stay calm, cool, and collected and go stair step by stair step. Even though, please don't think that when I was talking bad about the stair steps, that it's bad. That's a clunky way of thinking. Just like we don't say Newtonian physics is bad. Newtonian physics is true as far as it goes. That's why this stuff we're studying, Thomas called straw. Straw is not bad. As we've said, straw is what you use to kindle the fire that keeps your house warm. So be careful about clunky, good, bad thinking. That gets a lot of people in trouble, and I see it all over the place. That's indicative. That's like one of the hallmarks of worldliness. News media, barroom conversations, coffee shop conversations, armchair philosophy, which I guess is what this is. But anyway, just clunky thinking about what's good, what's bad. Everything is good and bad to the degree in which it makes revelation of the ultimate truth, which is he who is above essential naming. So these things are not bad, but there are greater and greater perfections. All right, let's keep going. Thus it follows from all the foregoing that in God, intellect and the object understood and the intelligible species and his act of understanding are entirely one and the same. That's what we just said. So let's hear him reply to objection 1. Replying to Mr. Larry, to understand is not an operation proceeding out of the operator, but remaining in him. If you, in the physical realm, things proceed out of you. You got urine, you got vomit, you got spit, you got snot. These things proceed out of your body. Your intellect is not, when we say it proceeds out, we don't mean it's leaving you. We mean it's moving out to receive the thing that it's seeing and then bring that apprehension back into a deeper part of yourself. We talked about this earlier with the king, the viceroy, and the leaving the city and going out to meet the visiting king and his entourage and then bringing him back into the city. Our intellect goes out, meets the intelligible species, and then brings that as an imprint through the agent intellect or through the intellect and imaginative part of the soul and intellect, and then that enters into a deeper part of the soul as by the mode of the container. All right, let's go to Article 5. Whether God knows things other than himself. Objection 1, Larry up on deck. It seems that God does not know things beside himself. For all other things but God are outside of God. But Augustine says that God does not behold anything out of himself. That's a big statement. Let's repeat it. Augustine says that God does not behold anything out of himself. How? Let's go. Therefore, he does not know things other than himself. That's the question from Larry. We'll hear Thomas's reply in a minute. Objection 2 from a Ralph. Further, the object understood is the perfection of the one who understands. Do I need to go into that? It'll be explained more later, and I've already explained it before, but remember what perfection is. It's like building the fire in the fire pit at the campsite. It's not perfect. It's the thing becoming what it's supposed to be. A little tadpole becoming the frog. Perfection. Further, the object understood is the perfection of the one who understands it. If you don't know something, little kids have never seen a horse before, she sees the horse for the first time, that image hits her mind, it instamps upon her, that perfection becomes a perfection within her, and then her knowledge of horsiness is becoming more and more perfected. She's coming to understand horsiness more and more perfectly. If therefore God understands other things beside himself, something else will be the perfection of God and will be nobler than he, which is impossible. So what Ralph is saying is the little girl sees the horse and she becomes better and better formed in her knowledge of horsiness. He's saying that can't be with God because God can't become better and better and more perfected in his knowledge. All right. It's a pretty good point, but here we go. Objection 3 from Shimon. Further, the act of understanding is specified by the intelligible object, as is every other act from its own object. Hence, the intelligible act is so much the nobler the object understood. But God is his own intellectual act. If therefore God understands anything other than himself, then God himself is specified by something else than himself, which cannot be. Therefore, he does not understand things other than himself. Let's keep rolling. On the contrary, it is written, all things are naked and open to his eyes. Hebrews 4:13. All things are naked and open to his eyes. Okay, let's hear the rational argument. I answer that God necessarily knows things other than himself. All right, but it's going to be interesting and probably mind-bending of how he says God knows things other than himself. It's not like we do. It's not what we would call normal. Actually, it's the most normal. We are the abnormal thing. But let's keep going. For it is manifest that he perfectly understands himself. Otherwise, his existence would not be perfect, since his existence is his act of understanding. Now, if anything is perfectly known, it follows of necessity that its power is perfectly known. But the power of anything can be perfectly known only by knowing to what its power extends. Since, therefore, the divine power extends to other things by the very fact that it is the first effective cause of all things, as is clear from the aforesaid, question 2, article 3, God must necessarily know things other than himself. And this appears still more plainly if we add that the very existence of the first effective cause, that is God, is his own act of understanding. Hence, whatever effects pre-exist in God, as in the first cause, must be in his act of understanding, and all things must be in him according to an intelligible mode. For everything which is in another is in it according to the mode of that in which it is. All right, now it's starting to slip into the interesting part, which I think is the next paragraph. But he's setting up the hints in this paragraph. God does know something other than himself. But there's some nuance of understanding. That which is other than himself is known within himself as he being the first cause. So it starts to get beyond our comprehension. It's certainly beyond our normal mode of being. So it's not like you can just understand this stuff simply. You have to really reflect on it, and then probably, I'm guessing, have more and more experiences in prayer that begin to enlighten you as far as God's way of knowing, as you experience his interior visions and closeness to you. I hope that works, but let's go on further and see if I can flesh it out more. which you can't flesh it out because it's not flesh. Now, in order to know how God knows things other than himself, we must consider that a thing is known in two ways: in itself and in another. So there's two ways we talk about knowing. A thing is known in itself or in another. A thing is known in itself when it is known by the proper species adequate to the knowable object, as when the eye sees a man through the image of a man. I'm seeing Joe. That's just simple seeing. One man sees another man. The intelligible species enters me, and I see him. A thing is seen in another through the image of that which contains it, as when a part is seen in the whole by the image of the whole, or when a man is seen in a mirror by the image in the mirror, or by any other mode by which one thing is seen in another. So now we have, or let's say this, scratch that first one about me seeing Joe. Let's think about this. I see myself. That's making it too difficult. Let's just move on. Remember, guys, this is a brief flyover. We could go into all these pages super deep and spend a whole semester on each. We've got to just get the general ideas. And also, it's all about getting together on this beaver galleon every day and having our head in the game. It's not about the Summa, it's about the daily. So we say that God sees himself in himself because he sees himself through his essence, and he sees other things not in themselves, but in himself, inasmuch as his essence contains the similitude of things other than himself. When I see Joe, I'm seeing Joe out there. When God sees you, he's not seeing you out there. He's seeing you within himself. When I see myself and come to know myself, I'm knowing myself. Craig knows Craig within myself. That's still not a perfect explanation because we do come to know ourselves through others. And Thomas gives the idea of an image, a mirror. You're seeing yourself outside yourself. Now remember, the divine logos is often called the image of the Father, or the mirror of the Father, the divine mirror. So these things start to get very esoteric. That's not a good word. And they're not even abstract. They're perfectly concrete because they're within the deity, who is perfectly act and not potency. But they are difficult to convey and explain. They require a great deal of reflection. And I think that they can only really be grasped more and more, as I said, through prayer experiences. I think God has to show you these things, but the words still are true and possibly illustrative. But just know this, that when you see something, you see something from the outside, and then it makes an impression on you. And then you begin to cogitate and understand it more. But when God sees you, it doesn't happen that way. Think of tchotchke dolls, perhaps. Those Russian tchotchke dolls where there's one inside itself and there's a smaller one. And the only reason I use that image, remember, all metaphors limp. The only reason I'm using that metaphor is just the part about something going deeper and deeper and deeper within itself. Only think about that aspect of it. Think about this: a oak tree. An oak tree is within the acorn. It's all within the acorn. And then it begins to move out through the soil and time and seedling and becomes an oak tree. You and me, God is seeing from all eternity in the very interior acorn of his heart. He sees you and knows you perfectly and completely. That's why that metaphor limps, because the fullness of the acorn is not manifest. The fullness of the oak tree is not manifest in the acorn, but it still is there in potency. So all these metaphors limp, but when God's seeing you, he's seeing you immediately within himself with no intermediary. That's how close you are within him. But we are in space-time coming to realize these connections, and we will one day come to see that all we have left on this hero's journey on this Fellowship of the Ring adventure we're on, it's as they said, you will leave home and then return to find that you never left. Think about that. That they didn't say that. The person who said that didn't just say it to say something fancy. It's that they've had some insight into this. You will leave home, go on the adventure, have your depressions, have your scandals, have your confusions, have your wounds, have your boons, have your festivals, have your Lothlorians and your times with what the heck's his name? I'm blanking on his name. The preternatural guy in Lord of the Rings who lives out in the woods. Oh my gosh, how can I forget this? It's because I'm in thinking mode and trying to keep it together, and that I can't pull back the names. The name is so obvious that all of you know it, and you're probably yelling at the screen right now. Anyway, you'll have your good times, your bad times, and go on your full adventure, and then finally drop your ring into Mordor, and you'll have your death and life, and then you'll come back home to your Shire and realize you never left. It's not fully shown in The Lord of the Rings, but it will be shown in eternity in your life, that you will see that once you enter into God, that he has always been seeing that which you always are. That which you are is within him in the depths of himself, and he knows you in that way. And we don't come to know things in that way because we are not pure act. We get to know things through space-time. All right, reply to objection 1. The passage of Augustine in which it is said that God sees nothing outside himself is not to be taken in such a way as if God saw nothing outside himself, but in the sense that what is outside himself, he does not see except in himself, as explained above. Let's keep rolling, guys. Again, you could spend forever on all of these things. If we were sitting around on a table sipping some bourbon and talking, we could talk about this into the night, unto the dawn, as our brother Yaakov probably has been doing with the Passover Seder, as we continue the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They continue the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Right now it's Passover season. Staying up late into the night talking about the things of Torah. Reply to objection 2, Ralph. The object understood is the perfection of the one understanding, not by its substance, but by its image, according to which it is in the intellect, as its form and perfection, as it is said in Dionama. For a stone is not in the soul, but in its image. When you see a stone, as they've said before, as the philosophers said before, that stone in some way enters into you. But it's not in you as a stone, but as an image of the stone. It makes its impression upon you, and now it's within you. But the stone doesn't enter into you. Thanks be to God. Or else you would die. Can't have stones in your heart. Anyway, now those things which are other than God are understood by God, inasmuch as the essence of God contains their images as above explained. Hence it does not follow that there is any perfection in the divine intellect other than the divine essence. I mean, it's just what we've already said. His essence has all that within him. All that is eternally within him. We are just coming to know it in this space-time adventure that we're having. There's a lot more that needs to be explained of all this, and philosophers have discussed it forever. I have some ideas on it and ways of explaining it that will be in my novel, preview of coming attractions, but the novel won't be out for a while. You'll just have to wait. Let's do the very last sentence. Reply to objection 3. The intellectual act is not specified by what is understood in another, but by the principle of blah, blah, blah. And it goes on another page, and we're going to finish it right there and come next time. Remember, guys, this is all straw. I'm going to go hang out with the boys. See you tomorrow, fellas. Have a good one. Peace to everyone. Amen.